Imagine, just for a second, a universe that doesn't just passively observe your actions.
Right. We usually think of the cosmos as this vast, cold, empty theater.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just happen to be walking around on the stage. But imagine if instead the universe is actively, instantaneously responding to every single passing thought you have.
Which is a pretty wild concept to wrap your head around.
And oh, totally.
Yeah.
Every flicker of emotion, every hidden intention, and not with some grand sweeping judgment at the end of your life, but right now in real time, just matching you beat for beat.
Yeah, it's intense.
It is. So today in this deep dive, we are pulling apart a thought system that claims this isn't just like a fun imagination exercise. We're looking at a text called Shui Feng Preaching Tao, Part 3.
Mm-hmm.
And we found this fascinating framework arguing that the universe has a literal biological Wi-Fi of consciousness that they call the Tao that tracks every move you make with 0 microsecond delay.
Yeah, and I should jump in here and say it is a dense, highly structured, philosophical framework.
Oh, for sure.
And just to be totally upfront about how we're approaching this source material, it makes profound spiritual, philosophical, and almost like mechanical claims about how the divine operates.
Right. Claims about how prayer works and the literal physics of consequence.
Exactly. So we are not treating this as an undeniable scientific fact or, taking a spiritual side here.
No, not at all.
The goal of this deep dive is simply to impartially unpack the architecture of this worldview. Because, the mechanics of how this text claims the universe operates are genuinely fascinating.
They really are. It's just such an intricate system. So to set the stage, the source material actually outlines 8 specific characteristics of this Tao.
Right, the foundational traits.
Yeah. I just list them out. So we have the foundation, we've got holographic order, eternal reliability, instantaneous sensitivity and adaptability, and finally, illusory yet actual existence.
That last one, illusory yet actual existence, usually requires a double take.
Oh, I definitely had to stop and read it twice because it sounds like a total contradiction. How can something be both an illusion and actual reality?
It's a paradox, right?
Yeah, but thinking about it through like a modern lens, it's kind of like a hyper-advanced background algorithm that runs a city's power grid.
Okay, I like that.
Because you can't touch the algorithm, you can't put it in a jar or weigh it. To our physical senses, it feels illusory because it's completely invisible.
Right.
But if that algorithm shifts or if it crashes, the lights go out, you instantly feel the very actual, tangible effects in your physical environment.
That is a highly functional way to visualize it. You can't capture the invisible code,
Right.
but it dictates the tangible outcomes of the entire system.
Exactly.
But rather than getting bogged down in defining all 8 of those foundational traits, the text really zeroes in on the third characteristic. That's really the key to understanding how this whole mechanism operates.
Then that third trait is instantaneous sensitivity and adaptability. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the scale of what is being described here is almost hard to comprehend.
It really is.
The framework argues that the Tao is the ultimate, most subtle sensor in existence, and it explicitly says that the sensor tracks the massive shifts of an entire galaxy with the exact same precision that it tracks a fleeting, random thought in your mind.
What's fascinating here is how this philosophy scales the concept between the macroscopic and the microscopic.
Right, because you'd think those two things operate totally differently.
Exactly. A natural counterargument would be, well, if everything in the universe is instantly adapting all the time, why isn't reality just pure, unpredictable chaos?
Yeah, why isn't my chair suddenly turning into a tree?
Right. So the framework handles this by explaining that if you zoom out to a macroscopic level, the Tao operates on vast, slow, constant principles. It follows cycles of birth, abiding, decay, and emptiness.
Wait, I understand birth and decay, but what do abiding and emptiness actually mean in this specific context?
Think of it as the complete life cycle of anything in existence. Like a star, for example.
Okay.
A star is born from dust. That's birth. Then it abides, meaning it enters a stable, prolonged state of existing and burning for billions of years.
Ah, got it. Just hangs out.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually it runs out of fuel, that's decay, and finally it collapses and returns to the void, which is emptiness.
Wow. Okay.
On the grand scale, these cycles are incredibly slow and perfectly reliable. But on a microscopic level down, at the level of our daily lives, our decisions, or passing thoughts, it is in a constant state of rapid fluctuation.
Things are just arising and ceasing moment to moment.
Precisely.
And the text proposes a concept it calls the 10,000 changes to illustrate that microscopic fluctuation.
Right, I love that part.
It's so interesting. It argues that if a person has 10,000 thoughts or ideas in a single day, the Tao produces 10,000 corresponding transformations. It acts as an absolute mirror. Like if your internal state remains unchanged, the universe remains unchanged toward you. But the second you shift, it shifts.
And that dynamic tension between the grand, slow macro cycles and the rapid reactive microcycles is why the source material references the ancient saying, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao.
Because it's a paradox again.
Right. It is eternally one stable thing, yet endlessly unpredictable because it is infinitely reacting to the infinite changes of every living creature.
Okay, but if this universal sensor is reacting with 0 microsecond delay to the 10,000 fleeting thoughts I have every single day,
Yeah.
where is the camera? Like, where is the actual hardware processing all this data?
Well, the text has a surprisingly biological answer to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's inside us. It resides in every drop of blood, in every single cell, in every nerve pathway, every breath, and every heartbeat.
Wait, so if it's literally woven into my biology, how does this philosophy handle deception?
How do you mean?
Like, if I lie to my boss about why I'm late to work, the sensor in my blood still recorded the truth. So who am I actually tricking in this scenario?
You are tricking absolutely no one but yourself. Because if the universal sensor isn't, a satellite looking down from the sky, but is instead the very nervous system animating your breath while you tell the lie.
Then deception becomes a mechanical impossibility.
Exactly. You might deceive another person's perception, but you cannot deceive the Tao. The framework argues that the more honest a person is, the more they naturally align with the characteristics of the universe.
Because lying would just create friction within your own biological and spiritual hardware.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains why the text places such immense structural value on our inner lives.
Right. It's not just about what we do out loud.
No, not at all. Our interactions are not just abstract, feel-good concepts in this worldview. When you pray, when you experience true repentance, or when you silently wish someone well, those carry literal weight.
They're actual data points being fed directly into that universal sensor.
Yes, with zero delay, they are physically altering the baseline of your reality.
So if my nervous system is genuinely logging every tiny lie I tell or every silent blessing I give, what happens to that data?
That is the big question.
Does it just like sit there in a cosmic hard drive, or does it actually do something to my physical day-to-day reality?
This is where we have to look at another one of those 8 characteristics we mentioned at the start.
Okay, which one?
The holographic characteristic.
Wait, why holographic? What does a laser projection have to do with my daily thoughts?
It's a great question because we usually use the word hologram to mean a 3D image, but the actual physics of a true hologram are unique.
How so?
Well, in standard photography, every pixel on a negative corresponds to a specific part of an image. If you cut the negative in half, you lose half the picture.
Right, of course.
But on a piece of holographic film, the information of the entire image is encoded in every single microscopic section of the film.
Seriously?
Yes. If you cut a holographic film in half, or into 100 tiny pieces, and shine a laser through just one tiny fragment, you will still see the entire, complete image.
Oh, wow. So the part contains the whole.
Exactly. And the text applies this physics concept to human consciousness. It argues that every single microscopic thought or action you have contains the blueprint and the momentum of your entire overall reality.
That is heavy.
It is. Because it is holographic, nothing is ever isolated and nothing is ever lost. The Tao meticulously records and accumulates every single one of these data points.
And the accumulation of those holographic data points leads to what the text calls the saturation point,
Yes.
which brings up what is probably the most striking and maybe difficult claim in the entire text. It states that any disaster is preventable and avoidable.
Right.
And it lists everything from something as minor as a slipped disc in your back all the way up to a car crash or a massive earthquake.
It fundamentally removes the concept of random, meaningless accidents from the human experience.
Hold on, though. You're saying if a literal earthquake happens, this philosophy claims it's because of the accumulated thoughts and hidden intentions of the people there.
That is what the text implies, yes.
That is a massive and, frankly, highly controversial claim. I mean, How does a passing thought mathematically trigger a tectonic plate?
Well, the mechanism the text relies on to explain this is accumulation reaching that saturation point.
Oh, okay.
The source material uses the analogy of a camel carrying a heavy load. What actually crushes the camel? It isn't the final straw, it's the thousands of pounds of weight already on its back.
Right. The final straw is just the microscopic trigger.
Exactly. Or think of a heavy balance scale. What dictates which way it violently tips? It's the final gram.
It's like filling a glass of water one microscopic drop at a time. It seems totally fine, the surface tension holds, everything looks normal, until that one final invisible drop breaks the surface tension and water spills everywhere. You didn't spill the water with the last drop. The spill was engineered by the accumulation of the thousands of drops before it.
That is the exact dynamic the text is illustrating. When the invisible accumulation of our internal data reaches a saturation point, even the most microscopic change, that final gram will instantaneously trigger a sudden macroscopic event.
That's incredible.
Yeah. To back this up, the text leans on several ancient proverbs to show how deeply this concept was understood in antiquity. Phrases like, "A single thought can move ghosts and gods," or "A single action can change heaven and earth."
There's another one I found really evocative in the reading. Look up 3 feet, you will find divinity.
But notice how this framework completely recontextualizes that quote. It suggests you don't even need to look up 3 feet into the sky.
Right.
That divinity, that sensor, is right there in your nervous system.
So for you listening right now, driving to work or doing the dishes, you don't look up at the clouds for surveillance. The camera is your own heartbeat.
Exactly.
Which makes the next quote the text uses even more piercing. In the darkness, one may harbor ill intentions, but the eyes of the divine are as bright as lightning. It's basically the ultimate death of the phrase victimless crime.
It is a stark warning against the illusion of getting away with it.
Yeah, big time.
The text specifically states, "To avoid misfortune in the visible world, do not offend the invisible." And it defines the invisible simply as our inner world, the quiet place no one else can see.
The place we think is safe.
Right. If you do wrong in that invisible space, the framework guarantees that there will be no good outcomes under the bright light of day.
Wow.
Thinking you've gotten away with an unethical choice just because you weren't caught today is pure self-deception. The accumulation is just silently building toward that saturation point.
Okay, I have to be honest here. Reading through that specific section about accumulation and saturation points, I felt a little paralyzed.
Paralyzed in what sense?
Well, it feels like walking through a minefield blindfolded.
I can see that.
If every single thought I have, every fleeting moment of annoyance in traffic, every tiny selfish motive is tipping a cosmic scale towards some invisible saturation point that could trigger a literal disaster, how does anyone actually navigate that without being completely terrified of their own brain?
It's a very natural reaction to feel overwhelmed by that level of absolute accountability.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But the text doesn't present this system to paralyze its readers. It presents it as a practical navigation manual.
Okay.
And the solution it offers lies in balancing two of those primary traits we discussed earlier: eternal reliability and instantaneous adaptability.
How does balancing those look in practice?
Well, because the tab has eternal reliability, the text argues that our core ideals, our beliefs, and our highest pursuits must also be steadfast.
Meaning we can't just flip-flop around.
Right. We can't be fickle. We can't completely change our core values every single day based on our mood, or we'll never reach any kind of ultimate destination. You need a solid, unwavering, true north.
Okay, so a strong, unchanging foundation for the macro stuff.
Yes, but, and this is the crucial part that answers your worry about paralysis, because the universe is also instantaneously adaptable, we cannot become rigid in our methods. We cannot cling to fixed rules, dead dogma, or panic over every passing thought in our daily actions.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the analogies the text uses for this survival manual are incredibly vivid. It says you have to navigate reality like an eagle hunting a rabbit.
It's a perfect illustration of combining reliability with adaptability.
So the eagle has a fixed, reliable goal: catch the rabbit. But as the rabbit darts left and right unpredictably through the brush, the eagle doesn't just fly in a straight, dogmatic line, insisting the rabbit should be where it was 5 seconds ago.
This would be ridiculous.
Right. The eagle flaps its wings to match every sudden, erratic change of direction the prey takes.
It adapts its micro movements instantly to mirror the actual terrain, without ever losing sight of the macro goal.
And the text takes that logic a step further with an analogy about crossing a river. It says, when you reach the riverbank on your journey, don't just stand there waiting passively for a miracle to part the waters. Look for a bridge.
And if the bridge is washed out?
You adapt. You find a boat. If there's no boat, you paddle yourself. If you can't swim, you don't jump in and drown out of some rigid sense of duty. You stay on the bank and practice swimming first. Or, if it's an absolute immediate emergency, you hug a piece of wood and kick your way across.
I love the practical nature of that.
Me too. The underlying message is so practical. You cannot simply wait for the invisible system to do the work for you. You must actively, dynamically engage with the immediate physical reality in front of you.
This raises an important question about the limits of human capability, though.
Oh.
What happens when adapting simply isn't enough? What happens when you're in actual, immediate danger or faced with an impossible dilemma where every choice seems wrong and there is no piece of wood to hug?
Does the framework offer a protocol for when you're totally out of options?
It does. It outlines a very specific emergency protocol.
Okay.
In times of extreme danger or a true dilemma, the text instructs you to promptly share your best, most honest wishes and prayers with the source, what it calls the greatest creator.
Just reach out directly.
Right. Because the system has 0 microsecond delay, your inner state of genuine need is perceived instantly by that biological sensor.
So it's not asking for long, formal rituals or specific incantations. It's just asking for immediate internal honesty.
Precisely. Once you've reached that state of internal honesty, the protocol is to entrust your life to the Tao. You essentially hand over the management of the crisis.
Just let it go.
Yes. And then, tying back to the river analogy, you go with the flow, act according to your true nature, and seize whatever narrow opportunities arise in that moment.
Wow.
The text guarantees that if you achieve that state of trust, protective measures will be generated in the nick of time.
Because the algorithm recalculates instantly. It recognizes the shift in your internal holographic data from panic to pure, honest intention, and instantaneously alters the external conditions to provide that metaphorical piece of wood you need to stay afloat.
It's a system built on profound trust, relying on the understanding that you are never, ever operating in a vacuum.
We have covered some seriously deep paradigm-shifting ground today.
But really have.
We started by looking at this concept of the Tao not as some abstract, distant philosophy, but as the universe's ultimate hypersensitive processing system. A living, breathing network that operates with 0 delay, flawlessly tracking the life cycle of a star and a passing human thought with the exact same level of precision.
And we explored how this sensor isn't an external camera, but something woven directly into our biology, our blood, our nerves, our heartbeat.
Right.
That biological integration makes deception a literal impossibility, and it gives our inner lives, our silent prayers, and our honest intentions tremendous structural power.
And we dug into the physics of consequence, how nothing is ever lost because of that holographic characteristic where every microscopic thought contains the whole...
Yeah, the saturation point.
Exactly. We looked at how those thoughts accumulate toward that saturation point, where the internal invisible data finally triggers a macroscopic physical event.
Finally, we broke down how to actually navigate a system like this. The necessity of holding steadfast, reliable ideals while remaining as instantly adaptable as an eagle hunting its prey.
Which is such a great visual.
It is. Refusing to be paralyzed by the weight of the system and instead actively engaging with whatever river is in front of us, trusting that honest intentions will generate a path forward.
So what does this all mean for someone just going about their Tuesday?
Right.
When you strip away the dense philosophical terminology, the core message of Sui-Feng Preaching Tao is actually incredibly empowering. It suggests that you are not a passive victim of a cold, indifferent universe.
Absolutely not.
In this framework, you are entirely co-creating your reality with every single heartbeat, every breath, and every fleeting intention. The universe manages, supervises, coordinates, and responds to you at all times.
It outlines a beautiful, intricate mechanism of absolute accountability and infinite support, which leaves us with a fascinating application of everything we've just unpacked. If this invisible universal Wi-Fi instantaneously matches our internal state, and if our hidden inner world dictates the saturation point of our external visible reality, what invisible reality are you currently building with the thoughts you're having right this second, while listening to this deep dive?
That is the perfect question to leave hanging in the air. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack the architecture of the Tao. We hope it gave you a new lens to look through, or at the very least made you deeply consider the weight of your next passing thought. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next one.